It's been a while. Hey, good to see you again. If you don't know who I am, I'm Simon, one of the two Panic Brothers, the other being Josue, and you are watching the Panic Brothers channel. Before we get started on the video today, I just want to address something very important to both me and Josue, and that is Black Lives Matter, and they always will matter. Josue and I have spent the last couple weeks protesting and educating others and ourselves on the century-long battle that we are way too familiar with growing up in New York City as two Latino men. This is an ongoing battle that we have demanded justice for years, and we feel it's very important that we use this platform, small or large, to inform our audience where we stand. We stand by the movement, and we demand justice where justice is due. Speaking of justice, at the time of this recording, only one of 3 police officers involved in the racially charged murder of Breonna Taylor has been terminated. And Kendrick Johnson, a black high school student who had his internal organs removed and replaced with newspapers, has still been declared as taken his own life via suicide. And finally, no police officer has been charged or terminated with killing a 23-year-old unarmed black man by the name of Elijah McClain. So I will be leaving some petitions, emails, phone numbers, contact information that you guys can reach out to and demand justice, as we and Josue have been doing for the last couple weeks. And with that being said, let's begin the video. We need to talk about something.
Now.
Yep, that's good shit.
Why does no one ever talk about Four Swords Adventures? I might get killed for saying this, but Four Swords Adventures is easily one of the top 5 Zelda games. And I really mean that. This game was great, and the fact that it sold 0.81 million copies, make it the lowest selling Zelda main title, bothers the shit out of me.
Ah, screw it.
Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventures was a game released between the GameCube juggernauts of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker in the year 2004. Four Swords Adventures is Zelda's lowest sold project, as I said earlier, with only 0.81 million copies sold. This game was really strange. Granted, I understand why it didn't sell that well. It's kind of hard to sell a game that really tries to sell on its multiplayer value when that multiplayer game mode requires use of a Game Boy cable to GameCube port accessory that people really only bought to play Pokemon Coliseum and XD. I grew around people who had the Game Boy and the GameCube, and honestly, I can probably count on my hand how many of them I know had that accessory. Now, if you didn't have the cable, and you had a GameCube controller, which I imagine you did because you had the GameCube, then you can still play the game. You just could only play it as a single player game. You couldn't invite your friends over and play 2, 3, or 4, as the game is preferably intended to be played. And I think this is the biggest factor of why the game really never saw that many people really get into it in a multiplayer aspect. I, for one, bought the game by myself because, I mean, let's be honest, I'll buy anything Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda stan.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
So when I bought the game, I plugged in my GameCube controller and I played it from beginning to end by myself and had a spectacular time. But I realized that my fun in the single player campaign of Four Swords Adventures didn't even hold a light to the fun I had with my cousins when we played the multiplayer campaign several times over. It's because the experience I had with my cousins that I feel like this game should not be shat on for its force controller requirement. If you and your friends had the right equipment, Four Swords easily became one of the most fun multiplayer experiences on the GameCube. I cannot even begin to explain how many long late night sessions me and my 2 cousins had, staying up till 2, 3 a.m. going through multiple dungeons, levels, and worlds in Four Swords Adventures when we already beat the game. I'm telling you, we ran this thing like 5 to 10 times and it never got old. This is my love letter to probably the only good multiplayer Zelda experience we'll ever get playing Zelda games. Let's start with the history. When the game was released on the GameCube, It further expanded on the original adventure of a single player option and new worlds and levels. So think of it like this. Four Swords Adventures was kind of like that ragtag tag-along feature for the Link to the Past port for Game Boy. It wasn't anything crazy, it was just something supposed to add on top so it didn't feel like just a reskin. And it worked. People actually like to link up with their friends and play the multiplayer feature that came with the game. It did so well that Nintendo decided, screw it, let's make Four Swords by itself a Game Boy game. And that did pretty decent. And then we get to this weird point where Nintendo was, well, we got Wind Waker that just came out, and we had this GameCube capability, and we had this cable that can connect to the Game Boy. What if we just grab the most random aspects of different Zelda games? I'm talking Wind Waker art style, Ocarina of Time characters, a Link to the Past feel, and the original Four Swords formula, which once again is based off Link to the Past. What if we grab all four of these and just put them in a game and call it Four Swords Adventures? That's how this game came to be. This hybrid combo of all these different Zelda games made Four Swords Adventures probably the most unorthodox Zelda games to ever come out at that time. Players would use the Game Boy screen that they had connected to the GameCube to see inside tunnels and caves when they were inside. It made sense because, if all four of you and your buddies are in different elements of a cave or behind a waterfall, it wouldn't make sense for all four of you to see the same screen. Then you would use the GameCube screen for all overworld activity. And it kind of was a pretty neat, seamless transition and not anything crazy that took you out of the game. If anything, it made you more invested because you got to see, the grand scale of things with you and your buddies, and then you got to see the more granular level of what I'm personally doing alone in this level. The game also utilized a Super Mario World map overview where players would traverse level by level in 8 different worlds. That was kind of neat, and honestly something that I kind of wish Zelda did again because, honestly, I think that brought more life to the Zelda universe than any other Zelda game at that time. Yes, Ocarina of Time was cool for having Hyrule Field, Zora's Domain, Death Mountain, you name it. But it was really cool to see the, map overview where you had 8 different worlds because with every level you went to, it felt like you were actually stepping into an episode of a Zelda TV show. Like you went to a maiden village and had to help out the villagers. You went to Death Mountain, you had to go to different caverns. Actually made Death Mountain seem like it was actually a mountain and not just one spot like Ocarina of Time. You even got to go to the sky and face several new unique enemies in those cloud levels and temples that lived up there. Something you really didn't see at the time for games like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, or Zelda 1. This sounds insanely dumb and convoluted for a Zelda game, I know, but holy shit, what came out of this design of adding Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, Super Mario World was a breath of fresh air for me and my 2 cousins growing up in the early 2000s. We got to explore Hyrule's massive world in so much detail, and to this day I have so many memories from this journey. And when I say that Four Swords felt like a TV show, it really felt like a TV show. Even the Links had different voices. Green Link, Red Link, Blue Link, Purple Link, they clearly were supposed to have personality. Obviously the game couldn't show it, but the voice was the closest thing we got to that. Not even that, we had reoccurring characters that popped up in several different towns and levels, including Dark Link, who kept causing mischief. And then you had these cool dungeons that played out as the epitome of all the episodes and all the stuff that you had building up in that world. It always bothered me whenever I bring up Four Swords Adventures to other Zelda fans that they don't have a similar experience that I had. They claim they either picked it up and dropped it or played it once and forgot about it. But for me and my cousins, we memorized every single level from every world in Four Swords and all the unique and creative puzzles each world represented. I'm talking Whereabouts of Wind, Eastern Hyrule, Death Mountain, Near the Fields, The Dark World, Desert of Doubt, Frozen Hyrule, Realm of the Heavens. Each one of these got cooler and cooler and cooler and made you feel like you were actually going through Hyrule, which I know I'm beating over your head, but I cannot stress that enough. This actually felt like a freaking adventure.
Whoa.
Each world had amazing enemies, a wide variety of items for each player to choose, and so many cool bosses. Speaking of items, the concept of allowing players to only use one item seemed dumb, looking back at it now, but honestly at the time, it allowed players to take up a role and offer aid to players in need. You could be the long range arrow guy, you can be the guy with bombs to find hidden paths, or you can even be the guy with the torch to light the way in dark segments. I can't even begin to tell you how many times my cousins and I had hysterical arguments over items and who was the most valuable player on the level, which leads me to the competitive aspect of the game and Force Gems. I fucking love Force Gems. So Zelda games typically utilize rupees as your main unit of currency. Four Swords found itself in no need to form a currency, considering how every level would function independently from the last. It wouldn't make sense to carry around money with each changing level. Instead, Four Swords introduced a Force Gem collectible. These boys acted as your ticket to defeating a level and gaining bragging rights. Essentially, the main villain in Four Swords, Vati, brand new character, pretty cool by the way, drains the magic Four Sword of its powers, and the only way to power that sword back up with each level was to collect 2,000 Force Gems by defeating enemies and accomplishing quests in the levels. Without these gems, you literally couldn't beat the level, not to mention the gems would power up your physical power and make cutting down large groups of enemies easier. The best part was that sweet bragging right every time a level ended. You were greeted to a results screen and watched the game tallied everyone's collected Force Gems, crowning the one with the most the MVP. Not only that, but depending on what color you were as your Link, that color was face stamped onto level forever, reminding everyone who had the most clout in that level. God, that was such a cool feature that drove us nuts. Literally, I remember just going through the toughest dungeons and levels and thinking, hey guys, remember who saved us in that level? The game does, because that was me. Because of Four Swords' multiplayer ability, Zelda for once was able to experiment with large boss battles and huge raids of enemies. I'm talking wiping out 40 enemies at a time. I can't name another Zelda game that dumped so many enemies at you at once and made it actually easy to accomplish to fight them outside, Hyrule Warriors. It made for so much chaos, but it felt so badass to be back to back to back to back as all four links like Lethal Weapon on the whole arena of baddies. I remember so many segments where we just got released a bunch of Dark Nuts and a bunch of Chain and Ball Knights, and we had to find out how to fight them separately and together when our backs were against the wall. It was just great gameplay design. I know I mentioned it before, but man, every single world hit. There was never a boring moment in the story. Literally from solving a mystery, and once again, this is just like the TV show I told you, solving a mystery of the village of the Blue Maiden all the way to traversing to the Dark World to final fights with Vati and Ganon. I loved every moment. Also, shout out to the feature of seeing the Dark World through shadows of the overworld. That always seemed really cool to me, and looking back at it, that was a pretty cool way to hint that you need to go to that Dark World in that level. Okay. I'm kind of rambling, and if I keep talking about Four Swords, we're going to be here forever. So, to finish off this video, I'm just going to go through a bunch of cool stuff that I remember playing, and hopefully someone watching this can resonate with what I'm saying, and if they can't, then I hope they pick up the game. Here we go. Wasn't it cool how Dark Link kept reappearing, causing mischief? Like, this motherfucker, you really stop him on some Team Rocket blasting off against shit. It was so cool, and it felt like just like sitcom. Or remember that segment when you pushed a fucking house with flamethrowers on the roof to wipe out enemies in nearby grass? Remember when those big ass bombs would appear with a timer because of Dark Link, and you would all run for your life underground or in the Dark World to avoid getting clapped? Remember how many annoying tingles would appear to try to steal your Force Gems if you died? Wasn't it sick how in the Tower of Flames, the Iron Knuckle would whip his chain out like whoosh, 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 but if you all had the Rock Feather, you could jump over him and stab him on some Assassin's Creed shit, and then you realize it was actually a vital skill that comes in later when you have to fight Vati, the second last boss. Yo, wasn't it so cool how different bosses and enemies would only be able to be hit by a certain link at a certain time? Like, I don't know, the freaking crawfish thing on the beach would have its red claw out, and only the red link can hit it, so then everyone looked at the red link like, yo, you got this? And he was like, yeah, I got this. And you would dome that motherfucker? You remember playing shadow battles against your friends with all those random items and stages? Shadow battles are so much fun! I love this game. I love this game a lot. And I could honestly do a 2-hour deep analysis on why it is such a good game, because my god, it's just fun. It's just fun. Like, yeah, the story isn't freaking deep or anything, and yeah, it kind of ripped off the Link to the Past engine and kind of added very little things to it, but it's fun, man, to just play with 3 other Links and explore the world together and go individually when you need to and huddle up as a group to fight the final boss, Ganon. It was just a great time, and I feel like Zelda can never do this again, man. How can you recreate something like, oh, Triforce Heroes? In conclusion, Four Swords Adventures is an amazing GameCube title, an amazing Zelda game, an amazing multiplayer experience. It really upsets me that when I look through the Zelda catalog, it gets it just gets no love. I used to think Majora's Mask got no love, but man, like, look at that cult following. Why is there no cult following for Four Swords Adventures? It has so much for it. Do me a favor. If you guys need a new game to play and you want to wipe the dust off the old GameCube, fuck it. Go get a Dolphin emulator. I don't even care. Grab some friends, get together, quarantine 6 feet apart, and play some Four Swords Adventures. It's a great game and I can't recommend it enough. This has been Simon from the Panic Brothers. Wishing you guys the best. Please stay safe. Stay indoors if you need to. And remember, we are all the same.